If you're making a monument on the National Mall, you already are representing your country. So you better come out with something that's really exceptional, because this country is exceptional. And so the art represents it, so it better be on par with what we stand for. And this is controversial for a lot of people because it's not PC to say this. This interview is not about me. This interview is about explaining to the general public that you can achieve great things if you use your mind, your heart, and for my case, my hands. And I'm driven by the knowledge that I have something that protects me, that grounds me, that brings me forward. And if I hit problems, it's only to grow.
Well, today I'm joined by Sabin Howard, who is one of the world's foremost sculptors in the classical tradition. Sabin, welcome to ISI.
Thank you. I'm honored.
It's a pleasure to have you. Today we're actually in the middle of ISI's honors conference. So we have 50 of our best students and professors from all over the country, and we're actually looking at the roots of American order. So we're starting the American story in Jerusalem, Athens, and Rome, and kind of telling that all throughout the medieval period, through London, kind of culminating in our experiment in Liberty in Philadelphia. And I know one thing that's really on the students' minds, which is very dear to your heart, is the idea of, the greatness, the goodness of America. It's not just in the rearview mirror. As we look forward to America's 250th anniversary, I know at ISI, we're thinking about America 500. What is this place? What is that civilizational vision that is going to lead us through the next 500 years? And how do we achieve that cultural renaissance? So, given your work, with the World War I Memorial and also the monument you're building out in Utah, I'm curious your thoughts on, as an artist, how can we achieve that civilizational vision of really sparking a cultural renaissance?
Well, it's a freaking loaded question. It's okay. So I've been making art since I was 19. I'm 62 now, and I didn't come to making monuments till the last 10 years. And once I got this project, because it was a global competition with 360 teams, it was kind of an aha moment where you have to grow into the position. And if you're making a monument on the National Mall, you already are representing your country. So you better come out with something that's really exceptional, because this country is exceptional, and so the art represents it, so it better be on par with what we stand for. I'm an example of what is possible as an American citizen because I've been afforded the opportunity to be my best self. So at 19, I couldn't draw at all. I didn't know what a portfolio was. I had no idea that there was a modern art world. I just came to the place after a lot of failure that, okay, I want to make art. It's at the level of Leonardo, Michelangelo, and Raphael. And so I embarked on this mission, and here we are right now. And I've grown not only artistically and technically, but also now the vision and the narration, and especially the visual narration and the language that art can disseminate. When people go look at a monument, I understand from having done one how critical it is and how critical art and culture is for the citizens. It's the tip of the spear, actually, about saying what we can be, about rising to the occasion. And the art that I make is about three things: agency, self-responsibility, and fulfilling the dream that each and every one of us has. Those three things: agency, self-responsibility, and the manifestation of vision. Now, that's what the Constitution is about, isn't it? That's what this art, this monument that I'm making now in Salt Lake is about, and that's what I just made at the National World War I Memorial.
Well, I want to get to both of these memorials, because there's an incredible, just story of just the staggering amount of time and focus and determination that went into them. But I want to kind of rewind to this vision of your 19-year-old self. You want to make art like Michelangelo, And so I'm wondering, as at least when we look at kind of the realm of statesmanship, there's this idea going back to Cicero that the greats imitate the greats, that imitation is sort of participation, and that through imitation of other great men and women, either looking back historically or in real time through kind of mentorship, that is how you become great. I'm wondering if that approach rings true in the world of art and sculpture as well.
Yeah. Yes, that's a really very, very good question. The art world, art has been hijacked by very nefarious ideologies, and the concept of sacredness. If you go back, even like, let's go way back to the very beginning of like when art was kind of like recorded in Lascaux cave paintings, and you see in these caves, these paintings or charcoal drawings on the walls of caves, that was done so that those people could see the light of day the next day because they needed to be successful in the hunt. So there was great meaning and importance to the art. So now, let's go to present day, and especially the last 100 years, and you're looking at an art that is like basically dismissed by general public and populace because it has no effing meaning. And that's the problem. If art has been taken for entertainment and irony and makes fun of people, why is your everyday lunch pail Joe going to be interested? He's just not, because it's not going to affect him. He's going to go look at an NFL game or a baseball game. And that's even better than looking at a piece of crap art, because at least that's going to elevate his spirit, because the athletes on the field are going to be working at their utmost to achieve something. Now, I think that this can be taken back. I think it can be taken back in a way that actually helps develop the people of a country, because art can tell a story, and story is what binds people together. It brings a group of people together under the auspice of a culture or a history. And so getting into like a war memorial, all of a sudden you're engaging with a whole slew of different things that art can reference. It's the human figure. We're made in God's image. So you're returning to that first. Then you're telling a history tale, a moment in time when we changed how we saw ourselves on the planet. Divine order is eliminated after 22 million people are killed in Europe. How could there be a God? And there's the birth of modernism and alienation. Well, this is a very important moment. And then you're representing a country, because the citizens and the people of the globe come to DC, what? To look at the history of our country, to learn about the history of the United States. So you're making something that informs them about who we were and who we will be in the future, because a visual narrative is not only the past, it's also the present, but it's also what we can be as we proceed forward. To be in lineage of is incredibly important. It's exactly what you said. I follow the great masters. My heroes are the guys that made great art, and you knew it was great art, and you still know it's great art when you look at the lines in front of the Vatican and the Uffizi Gallery. They go on for blocks, half a mile. You don't see that at these Chelsea galleries in New York City, where stuff is like price tag. That's how it's valued. It was valued for beauty and also uplifting human consciousness. And this lineage that began with the Greeks, Romans, Renaissance, neoclassicists, and then Rodin can be played forward. But here's the rub. It's not going to happen with governments. It's going to happen with private donors stepping in to the brink and coming up with ideas. So you need to create modern day Medicis to make modern day monuments. And that's what will happen. I am going to make an example of how we can do this, and then hopefully that will rub off on other people.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I like to think of modern art is a bit like a mirror, in the sense of you're looking back at yourself and you're projecting your own meaning on the object that you see. It's a very, because you don't necessarily know what it means, it's up to you to kind of figure it out. Where at least I think of more classical art more like a doorway or a window. It's an invitation not just to look back at yourself, but to actually step through.
It's inclusive.
Yeah, it's inclusive, it's participatory. You get to know, you touch and see something about the truth of human nature and the human experience. I wonder if we can get back to the modern art real quick. In one of your other interviews, you talk about the modern art as sort of a money laundering exercise. I wonder if you can unpack that, because I think it's a fascinating.
It's a little sad
idea. It is sad, yeah.
Let's say you have artist X, and artist X makes a deal with gallery X. So they'll have a bunch of collectors get together and buy a piece of art, and then that piece of art will go to auction at Sotheby's, and Sotheby's will have a price tag on it, and there's been some already discussion behind the scenes to purchase that piece prior to it going up. So it's going to get purchased, and then all of a sudden that's going to skyrocket the whole collection, which is actually now at the gallery. And so now you've just created. If you did that in the stock market, it's called money.
Insider trading.
It's insider trading. Yeah. That's exactly what happens. So, but what happened? And then you have a whole system that's in place to make sure that.
Does that happen with donations as well, in the sense of acquiring a painting and then it goes up 10x in value, and then they can
there's a whole scam going around also, like insurance, where something is valued for a number and then it sold off, and then the returns are much larger. But it's the issue that I think is really sad is that you have a whole system that buttresses this, and that status quo is the art galleries, museums, critics, and actually schools, because they're teaching false information about what art is. And that whole thing is something that I threaten, because I'm saying you're not valid. Your work's not valid. Your ideas are not valid. And I think this all goes back to, why is the work not valid? Because let's just go back, rewind a little bit to World War I and the 22 million people that were killed. That left a foul taste in humanity's mouth. And you have an art that springs up in Paris with Marcel Duchamp, the Dadaist, that makes fun of the idea that there is a God. Yeah. The urinal that he made, it's a urinal. It's just a urinal, and it says R Mutt on it. And that was kind of the beginning of this movement that now we're 125 years later, and it's like, okay, it's getting old, guys. It's really redundant. It's time to move on. And so the other aspect is, and this is controversial for a lot of people, because it's not PC to say this, but okay, so art used to be in lineage of Western civilization. And then all of a sudden people decided that was irrelevant. And it happened a lot after this World War I massacre of all these people. You have artists like Picasso in France, and they rejected Western civilization, tying it to bourgeoisie values that were non-important, they were superficial. It was like a Chanel commercial that was not deep. Yeah. And where did he go? What was his holy grail? He looked towards tribal Africa and the masks as the next form of art, because he said it was vibrant. And he was correct that the masks that came out of Africa were very vibrant for Africa and those citizens, because that's their heritage, and it has great value for them. But you cannot take that and then bring it over to Europe, and you have a completely different system of civilization, and then say this is the new art for Western civilization is now out. This is in, and you have the beginning of paintings like Mademoiselle d'Avignon and Guernica, which is more interesting, but that's a complete In Cubism, you're completely shutting off and throwing everything out. So you're not only throwing out the art, you're also throwing out the philosophy of Bible, which is not only a religious and spiritual statement, it's also a philosophical statement on how we should comport ourselves. 10 Commandments, those sort of things thrown out. And then you have this rejection of the past. Just reject the past because it's old. And then this is continued to the present day. And it is blown through the schools, especially beginning in the 60s. And now it even gained even more strength, with woke doctrination. And there's a fight back. There's a fight back that is populist right now. It's one of the reasons that Trump won the presidency. And it's one of the reasons that there is this resurgence of a value system. And the value system is not something separate from the art. Great art and life are intermeshed. And I believe we are on the cusp of an American cultural renaissance, bringing back these systems that were in place for over 2,000 years. And I'm not saying to do it archaeologically. I'm saying to look at it, play it forward in a way that's contemporary and is valued by the citizens. And the beauty of it is that it's not divisive. It's inclusive. So you bring all these different cultures together under these ideas, and that's where the world is revisiting things. I think it's important to reevaluate, and always to look at the ideas that came from the past, but don't reject them wholeheartedly because they're from the past.
Yeah. So what is, obviously with this sort of rise in populism, I've heard some people say that beauty is a populist virtue, or at least has a populist quality to it in this sense. Obviously it takes excellence, right, and virtue to create something beautiful. But once you've created something beautiful, right, the people that are really your everyday American or your everyday European, you walk into a cathedral, you approach the Grand Canyon, you approach, one of the monuments, including your own in DC, and it sort of is arresting. You know it when you see it. So what is that connection between excellence and also kind of that common touch or resonance that you find in beautiful monuments and art?
Well, let's look at one monument that I think a lot of people can say, oh yeah, that's a successful one. Let's look at the Lincoln Memorial. So obviously stems from Greek architecture in a Greek temple, and light, sunlight, and shadow is very important to that monument because it creates a space that when you go into it, you are transformed. And you're not like transported down, you're transported up, you're elevated.
Yeah.
You're brought to higher consciousness. Let me ask you this. Would you go buy an ugly car? Would you go buy a crappy looking house? Would you go maybe you might buy, clothes that look crappy, but for the most part, general populace is going to go look at beauty in things that are purchasable. So why did it change for art? Why did art get hijacked and then all of a sudden you're buying a piece of art that actually tries to be ugly? And then you're told, well, it creates feelings in you. It's successful. It's making you think. Well, yeah, sure. But, a turn on the sidewalk's going to make you think. You're going to try to not step in it. It's like, this is what I'm saying. It's like, if you ask most people that are not, art educated, that don't go to museums, don't go to galleries, don't read the New York Times in the art section, you're going to get a similar response. It's like, yeah, I want to do things that make me feel better. So why would you want to look at art that makes you feel worse? Don't we have enough feeling worse in our general life? So I'm from the school that when you look at a piece of art, it's not real world, but it's showing you where you might possibly go, what's possible. It's showing you something that might give you information to then proceed and make your life higher in consciousness. And again, I'm going to use that phrase, rise to the occasion. And I think that's where you got a real problem with modern art, because You look at de Kooning, you look at Jackson Pollock, who was, these are people that are failures as human beings. And a lot of it is because they lacked a sense of something larger than themselves. And that's the concept that there is a God. And and believing in something larger than yourself already eliminates the sense that you are alone. And so now all of a sudden you have something that you can fall back on and say, yes, I am in service of, and my path is already predestined. I just need to listen. And so the art of the past in some ways was connected to that theology and that ideology and philosophy. And then when you throw that all out because it's Western civilization in the past, now you're left with a giant void. And then all of a sudden you have these horrible problems where people feel like alone and suicidal.
And you see that obviously reflected even in the kind of the deaths of despair kind of statistics, which especially around 2014, just went off the charts to over 100,000 a year. So kind of getting to our nation's capital, I want to explore sort of one area before we get to the World War I Memorial, which is, if you look at the monuments, so if you look at the U.S. Capitol, you look at, these are buildings, the U.S. Capitol, the White House, and then the various monuments from the Jefferson to Lincoln memorials, all the way to World War I and beyond. Can you explain? Maybe if we're just kind of quickly looking at it from the late 18th century, 19th century, and 20th century, what were the founders and their successors in each of these periods kind of trying to convey with the buildings and memorials that they were building in each of those eras?
I want to really break it down to the most simplistic terms so it's understandable. The concept is unity in separation, and that's seen in a philosophy. So let's go to unity is seen as a sense that the universe is one, and there is a hierarchy in the universe, and there's a divine order, meaning that everything fits together in a specific way and has a specific importance within the whole. And this was very, very apparent from artists like Leonardo from the Renaissance, where, let's take the human body, for example. When you study the human body, it can be seen as different systems of construction. Like, for example, the skeleton is the architecture, and it's made up of all these bones that move in space to create one figure. And within that structural, almost architectural element, then you have an organic element. And the organic element are the muscles that move almost like a DNA spiral and move the bones through space. And if one section of the body moves, another part of the body has to move to maintain a sense of balance. So that's already a mechanism that is one and made up of many parts, and all those parts are working together in a hierarchy to create that being, and that being carries a psychology. And that's what that's the brief story of the Renaissance. And then now let's jump more to a modern view where there is no cohesiveness. There's what rules the universe, out of Frank Gehry's mouth. Chaos. Everything is random. There is no sense of organization. It's just completely, it's like you're throwing marbles across the floor and they scatter and they're not connected. And each little marble has nothing to do with the other marbles around it. So if you look at the architecture of the past, it was closer to the unity concept. And then if you look at the architecture of the present, let's go to brutal architecture. There's this dehumanization because it takes away the sense of beauty, and beauty is in complete cahoots with the sense of all these parts working cohesively as a whole. So the separation of things, like for example, you might see a building that is very, very large, has very few windows, and what does it look like? A prison. I'm not going to say which building that is. You can guess for yourself. And that brutalism came out, guess where it came out of? It came out of, like, after World War II, out of socialist and communist and Marxist ideologies.
Yeah.
And where is God in those sorts of government form? It's the government.
Yeah.
Government has replaced God. And so the buildings show that. The form itself shows the philosophy of those times. So when you get this, like, flow across the board and the mall is made, the concept was to connect all these different parts. It came from the French ideology. There was a triangle, and all these pieces were part of a whole. Unfortunately, what has happened, because we've become very uneducated in this, it's such a damn simple philosophy. Either it's unified or it's not. It's the philosophy changed also because God became unimportant. And then you get all this, like, scattered. So if you look at the mall, all those different monuments and memorials have very little to do with each other. They're all done in different styles. There's no cohesiveness. And so that's how our country has gone. And I think that's kind of sad, because it's always this looking towards the future. And this is the beauty of our country. We're never looking backwards. We're always looking at what can we create that's new. But I think it would be more beneficial if we held on to some of the tenets of the past that actually had endured for many years and kept a society and a structure together, rather than rejecting them for things that are more creative and more, let's say, intrinsically, like, new, shockingly new. And just shockingly new to a lot of modernists equals plain damn ugly, because it's anti-beauty. And it also goes against anti-human. There are no proportions to them.
Yeah, I'm that makes a lot of sense. I think unity and beauty, right, and obviously the example, the human body, makes a lot of sense. So tell me about, let's say, what were the first? Is the U.S. Capitol the oldest building?
Yes. So let's go to the U.S. Capitol, and let's look at what's out front. On the one side, you have a sculpture made by a sculptor, Schrady.
Okay.
There are two giant pieces pulling an artillery wagon on one side.
Okay.
And the other side is all these horses charging. And this is pretty much one of the best sculptures in the whole country. And that sculpture took 20 years for Schrady to do. And unfortunately, he died 2 weeks before the unveiling because of the stress that the project brought upon him. There was a cohesiveness to his work that then transmits. It's exactly in the same style. The 1880s are probably the last style that, you really look, you're following Canova in Europe.
Okay.
Neoclassicism, which is a direct lineage to, like, classicism. The word classicism came up in the French. The French invented the word. It didn't exist till the French invented it. And then they came up with the idea of neoclassicism because they wanted to make an art that presented the grand empire, like what Napoleon was doing. It was a way to establish a sense of grandeur. And there's a superficiality to it, actually, in relation to the Renaissance, because it's not about God. It's about power, pure power. If you look at the Capitol, what's the date? I don't know the date of the Capitol. Do you?
Not off the top of my head.
Yeah. But if you look at it, it's unified as a large form. In all those columns, those are all elements that hold up and buttress this huge dome. That's already a symbol of all these parts. It's like a fascia of all these pieces of wheat bound together to make a unified whole that's stronger. So those are the symbols of holding up this huge dome, and it makes it lighter. The dome is a huge, massive structure. Light hits those columns and creates space, so there's a sense of transparency and elegance and lift that goes up. It doesn't go down. It's not weighty. It's the same element that you see when you go look at the Lincoln Memorial.
Okay.
Lincoln Memorial was completed, I think it was the 1920s.
Okay.
Right around then. And then let's proceed forward into, like, what happened with, we can jump way ahead to, like, the Vietnam Memorial. Now you're talking about something that it's very sad, but it's very poignant. It's a giant tombstone with all these names on it. I cry when I see those names because I grew up in that era. But I don't necessarily see that as art. I see it as a remembrance of human beings. And you see so many lists of young men and women that died, that's where the pain is, the visceral aspect when you go visit that. And if you go look at the Korean War Memorial, unfortunately, I think that was a botched memorial because the guy got too old, and then he had just made all those soldiers. They were only like 24 inches, I think, at max, maybe even less. And that's what he left at the foundry. And so the foundry it was Talik's Art Foundry in Beacon, New York. They just covered all those figures with ponchos. Mm-hmm. And then all those figures are very separate. And it's very cinematographic, which is interesting for people. But I wouldn't say it's great art. And all those figures they're not connected.
Yeah.
They're not cohesive. So I reacted to all this stuff. I don't want to even talk about the Gehry Memorial. It's such a piece of crap. And I really reacted to all this. And I wanted to make something with the 38 figures and the 60-foot wall that I have that were all interdigitated and connected. Because that's what I want. And I don't think that the Commission of Fine Arts knew that that's why I did it. Mm-hmm. There's only one figure that's separate, and that's the shell-shocked figure. And that shell-shocked figure represents modernity and alienation. Mm-hmm. So
let's pause there. So rewind. You hear there's an opportunity to submit. You said there's over 350, 360 people enter this competition for the World War I Memorial. Yeah. Was there any memorial existing prior to this for World War I, or was it?
There was a General Pershing in the corner with these granite walls that had maps on them that had been done, I think, in the 70s. And it feels like an afterthought because it was a skating rink. The Friedberg had been the designer of this modern park. Okay. And the park had at the very center of it a skating rink. And so this became part of the problem in our, how do you call it? The opportunity to make a national memorial. It had been signed into effect by Obama and Congress because it was federally mandated law that this would become now a national memorial. But the problem was that any land in Washington is highly contested. And so then all of a sudden the Conservation Committee comes up that where Friedberg's, he's the originator of that Pershing Square Park. And they're like saying, well, the Zamboni shed, that's this granite cube in front of this ice skating rink, that's the heart of the park, this cube. And this is an urban park, and it's his best urban park ever. It had fallen apart, massive disrepair. They hadn't taken care of it, and it's 150 yards from the White House. And so eventually we got past that, and anything's a battle that has like a vision.
What year is this?
This is like. The contest goes in 2015. We win in, Joe Weishart and I win in 2016.
Why did you win? Why do you think you won?
I can tell you exactly why we won. Because Joe was the only architect that took the proposal for entrance into the competition and followed the directions. It said, maintain as closely as possible the structure of the current park while bringing also a memorial to the site. So maintain the urban park and also bring a national memorial to the site. So it had a dual purpose. So he, being 25 years old, really followed the directions. He didn't go beyond. And Edwin Fountain, who was basically the guy deciding kind of on Centennial Commission, picked that as the winner, and I was on the team, which didn't hurt because he told me after we really liked the Grant Memorial done by Schrady that I just discussed. That's what I'd like to see at the park. And so I changed my whole mode of working from being a strict classicist to becoming much more of an emotional humanist. And in so doing, it's like I feel like I've brought classical art forward to more a contemporary place that's not archaeological. And the reason I'm saying that is because I was at the park yesterday and I saw at 7 a.m. how much people come to it in reverence and look at it, and they're really interested, and the kids are really interested at it. And there was one thing that I did that I changed my work because I looked at this as an opportunity to not make my own work, but I'm going to make something to be in service of the visitors. They go look at it, and they're not going to be into art. So what are they into? Okay, maybe they're into movies. That's what I thought. And so I took that road and I made a movie in bronze. So when you walk from left to right, you're an active participant looking at the screen change in front of you.
It took you 9 years.
Let's put it this way. It would have taken me 6 years if I hadn't been plugged up by the bureaucracy in DC.
Okay.
You get slowed down by running through agency approval, and especially the agency Commission of Fine Arts. They didn't want to see that because they wanted to see the Friedberg Park remain.
Okay.
So they were completely fighting against it.
It's 60 feet in width.
Yeah, 58 and a half.
58 and a half.
And here's the funny part. I mean, they tried to minimize the sculpture as much as possible, and I fought back as deceptively as I could by increasing the scale of the figures. After we had passed at 6.5 feet, I just went, we had COVID, so nobody's coming to my studio to check. I just enlarged the figures in clay. Like I took Shell Shock Guy and I added a good 10 inches to them. And you're sculpting on a foam armature that's digital, and then I just went back to work at doing what I always did, sculpt from a life model, and I just blew everything up more and gave it more power so that it breaks past the barrier of the form, the wall behind it. And it was just such a shit show. Sorry to say that, but it was just ridiculous. It was like one of the judges or commissioners on the panel, Commission of Fine Arts, goes, well, we have this information. Those two planners, 135 feet away. Well, that's 55 feet apart or 57 feet apart. So the memorial on that side of the park should be the same size as the planners. Well, why don't you move the freaking planners a little bit and make it? But it was because it would keep going back to this. It's like, it's all about the philosophy makes the form. And for me, it's like you need to make the figures as large as humanly possible, but not like, monolithic and fascist like Soviet stuff. You want to make it so it's accessible and also brings people in and they want to touch it and they want to feel elevated. So I said I drew a line in the sand. You can't make them smaller than 6.5 feet. And then I had to go present all these other sculptures that are around DC to prove that 6.5 feet was not, you can't go any smaller. It's like you're going to trial, basically. And you're guilty till proven innocent. So I'm explaining things that are like obvious, especially to sculptor, but there's no sculptors on the panel. They're all landscape architects. So it was a very weird place to be.
So 58 feet wide, all carved by hand.
Yeah, sculpted with clay.
By hand, with clay.
Yeah, it's additive. Carving is more subtractive. Okay. But why am I telling you this? Because when you add clay to sculpture, you're diagramming forms with your tool, like a drawing, and then you're building to the high point of each of those forms. And just in so doing, the sculpture now looks like it's pushing out into space, which again is form equals philosophy, which means that it's expansive. it's limitless. There is no limit. It's pushing out. And that's why you capture the soul of a human being. And I'm sculpting from an individual.
How many models did you use?
We used about 25 models, and there's some figures that are repeated because, like, the father figure appears 5 times, the main protagonist. And then some of the models, I used veterans from the halfway point to the end because they brought such an experience of war, not only in what, their mindset, but also in their morphology, because your body carries your history. So their faces show the shell-shocked quality. Right? Rangers, Marines, and Navy SEALs.
Wow. And how many pictures of them did you take and sort through, and how did that work?
In the beginning, that's when the pictures were part of the process. And that was, I did 25 iterations for Edwin Fountain. And those 25 iterations, we finally arrived after about nine months to the iteration of A Soldier's Journey, when Edwin said to me at a Barnes & Noble bookstore in Union Square, it was like, okay, you can go to work and do the drawing. And I had taken 12,000 images of different poses. And then I'm going to be very honest, I didn't know how to do this when I entered into the project, and I learned how to do it on the job training. So that's, I think, and I'm bringing this up because I think that's what's so great about our country, that it has such a I can do spirit and an attitude of like, okay, well, let's figure it out. Let's figure it out. And I think that that's our history, the real history, where we step into the brink and then it's like, let's figure it out. You're going to tell me that George Washington knew what the hell he was going to do when he got in the boat to cross the Delaware after he'd been defeated, and then he's going to take his troops to hide out on the other side? And that's like pretty damn cool. It's like they didn't have Gore-Tex back then. Yeah. These guys, could have died. And the fact that this guy was a massive person. For those days, I think he was over 6 feet. And a real physical person, a farmer, and very intelligent and great courage. Why is this not taught anymore? That's what I'm saying. Let's look at why we should have pride. And so I'm on the other side after I made the World War I Memorial. And that's why I'm like unapologetic. That's why I'm telling you all this stuff that a lot of other artists and people wouldn't talk about, because it's like, I'm not going to apologize anymore for having pride and agency and self-responsibility. That's what our country stands for. That's what my memorial stands for.
It's a beautiful thing. I still, the drive though, I mean, that's kind of staggering to think 12,000 images of models that you then distill down to the final it's just, I can't even kind of comprehend the level of detail and just the drive for excellence that.
Okay.
But where does that well of motivation come from?
Okay, so I think we got a problem in our country right now. I think that men are not seen as testosterone as a positive thing, and power to actually have the ability to proceed forward and do something. I didn't know if I could pull this off, but I'm going to give it my best shot, and I'm not going to put down my tools till I figure it out. So yeah, I have in me a drive that is, my heroes are like Muhammad Ali. Mm-hmm. People that never gave up, people that just there are people in my family that never gave up, that fought in World War II, that did things that are incredibly heroic. It's in my mindset. And then also, can you imagine? Okay, you have a dream when you're 19, and then it's all of a sudden you realize that there's a big wall in front of you, and it's like, okay, well, I didn't look at that wall as like, okay, damn it, I'm not going to get on the other side. It was like, how do we figure this out?
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, not only something that, it's my character, but it's also like, it's part of who the United States is.
Yeah.
So I didn't start with a lot of gifts. That's what I think as an artist. I think I had a lot of like persistence.
Yeah.
And I think there is a very famous person who signed a Declaration of Independence. I believe his name was Benjamin Franklin. And didn't he say that genius is 99 perspiration and 1%, I don't know, it was 1% is thought, or something like that. So I think that that's the deal. But you don't make you make a mistake once. You don't repeat that mistake. You have to learn from the mistake, because failure is not learning from the mistake. Failure is not redirecting your course.
Yeah.
And so when I got this commission, I was surrounded by some landscape artists that were like, well, you got all your eggs in one basket. That could be very dangerous. And I was like, yeah, no, it's not. We're going to win this. There is no option but success. That's my mentality. And I think that that sort of, you might call it cockiness, but I don't. I think it's more about like my faith. My faith gives me great grounding and great power because I'm in service of it. So this is not about me.
Yeah.
This interview is not about me. This interview is about explaining to the general public that you can achieve great things if you use your mind, your heart, and for my case, my hands. And I'm driven by the knowledge that I have something that protects me, that grounds me, that brings me forward. And if I hit problems, it's only to grow and to become a larger person. And so that's what the project did for me. And I think that is the mentality that our country was founded on.
And the mentality we need right now.
Yes.
And so what, as you look at, again, the 9 years, 12,000 images, the time, the dedication, the mastery of your craft over decades of your life, how do you think, at the moment where we need that now for this cultural renaissance, we also have artificial intelligence, right, coming in, attempting to do a lot of the things that, and obviously it can't compare to the human artist because it fundamentally lacks humanity, but people will try to make it do what humans can do. How do you see the technology either potentially destroying or undermining the time, the dedication, the excellence needed, or is there any way in which it could enhance public art and monuments?
It's a great question. I'll stick to what I'm an expert in, which is making sculpture. And I use technology. I guess what I do is I do use AI, but it's the middle part of the process. And so here, it's the tool to get through the grunt work.
Yeah.
So even isn't it taking a picture with a cell phone? Basically, isn't that AI?
Sure.
It's tech. Well, and what does the AI stand for? Is it really just technology? Is it a form of technology? It's information. It's a form of technology, correct?
Yeah.
So then, all right, I got trained, and this is something that I'm really lucky about. I didn't have a computer or a cell phone until I was 37. So I'm 62. I didn't even know how to use a computer until I was 37. I got an Apple laptop. I was like, whoa, this is weird. So then, if I were to design that World War I memorial, that's, it's kind of epic, and I didn't have those tools, how long would it have taken me? Maybe 15 years?
Yeah.
But we're moving so fast right now in this century because of the technology. And I'm not against technology at all. I am all for it in my field because it doesn't take anything away from me. Like my skills, you cannot duplicate them in a machine. And so this goes back now to the idea that human beings are sacred. And our brains are way more powerful than we acknowledge. And personally, I think a lot of the information that's being dispelled to the public is that technology, like and in medicine too, and all these other fields, there are shortcuts, and technology can take away some of the burden of doing the labor. But actually, part of it is doing the labor is actually what forges the steel.
Yeah.
And so the becoming of and getting to the other side and really becoming a master of one's craft in many different fields requires that you pass through this torturous, it's an experience that molds you into who you are. And so I have 80,000 hours of looking at life models that if I had not been doing that, I wouldn't have such an understanding and awareness of human energy and how we're built from how I had been educated. So because you're an educator, let's go to that and bring AI into that. If you don't give people the proper education, they do not have the ability to perceive the reality, because education enables you to see things that you would otherwise not see, and that education is critical. So if you're teaching them a bunch of crap and a lot of information that is not wisdom, and the information I was taught was the wisdom of how the body is assembled from a architectonic and organic point of view based on a Renaissance system that came out of Florentine Italy and the Greeks and the Romans. So I had that in my mind. So when I look at the model, I have a way of translating life into art. And that's how then I begin a project. And then I go in and I use the camera. And then I use this thing called photogrammetry, which is you put a model within a rig of 160 cameras going off at the same time. And it's basically a 3-dimensional picture of that model. And then you can take that data and put it into a computer, and you can print out a 3-dimensional form. So it's the next step in the technology of photography. Well, that's a wonderful thing for me, because now all of a sudden I got an armature that I can begin my sculpture with. And I can organize all these different figures and all these different parts. And I have more control over making the whole. But if I didn't have the education to know what importance the whole holds, the technology is a bunch of crap. So it's driven by a human being with an education. And that's where we got to buckle down and start looking at what our universities and colleges are teaching. I'm going to say in the art. What I learned in the art school that I went to, Philadelphia College of Art, in the early 80s, is now no longer available to artists. They don't teach that stuff anymore. So they have cut that out, and now you're jumping directly into an aesthetic that is, it's the AI technology stuff, and it's the camera is now the new form sense of how to translate the real world into the art world. Whereas I came from the place where the aesthetics of art, proportions and design that came out of Western civilization were the way to translate life into art. And then the tools of AI are used to cut out the construction part in that monument making, and then you go back to the actual human perception, looking at the model, and then sculpting it from a one-on-one perspective. And so then you're going back to human fingerprint and eliminating the AI stuff, which is a digital fingerprint. I hope that's not too...
No, that's very helpful. So moving forward to today, you've moved out to Utah with an aspiration that you're turning into a reality to build a monument there to commemorate America's 250th anniversary. Tell me about what that monument is and why you're doing it.
I'm going to keep coming back to God. Around March 11th, exactly March 11th, around 2.
After my birthday.
Oh, cool. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Were you born at 2 o'clock?
I was not.
Okay, we got it. My wife, Tracy, got in a Sprinter van with me. And the reason that we left in March 11th is because she was working on a documentary called Heroic. It's incredibly visceral. And she had run film throughout the whole process of the monument making. 9.5 years she ran film the whole time. So she was like, had she had to break down her studio, and we put all the servers and all the hard drives into that van in Connecticut and emptied our house out, put it in pods, and we headed to Salt Lake. Okay. Nobody had called Mr. Howard up and said, "Hey, we got a commission for you. Come out. We'd like you to make a sculpture for us." No, I went out in my yard. I got 22 acres. I'm in the woods. And I asked for guidance. I asked for, what should I do next? And I came in, it was like February from one day, and I had been communing with universe and God. And Tracy said that my light, there was all this light around me. She sees things that I don't see. She said that I was filled with Christ consciousness. And I had gotten guidance to move to Salt Lake. And I'd made a trip to Fort Worth that just was abysmal, complete failure. I ran up against ideologies that were in antithesis to the idea that our country is built on agency and self-responsibility, but it was more oppressor-victim roles. And I had met with 4 museum directors and the mayor of Fort Worth, and got in a fight that day because I basically called them irrelevant. And they didn't like that. And they told me that I was out of touch with the times. And so, as my usual self, I just said F you and left the table. And so we got to Salt Lake, and then I started hustling, and I got a connection to someone who was very high up. He's the governor behind the governor. And he was like, "I love this idea." I brought it to the table. Okay, in short, basically, I can say no governing body commissioned me, but maybe a governor who's way higher commissioned me. So I feel this is a commission from God. And I feel like nobody stepped up at the brink when our country is at the 250th birthday of its inception.
Yeah.
Where are we leaving something that will last past this date of July 4th, 2026? So I said, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this. And so I'm going to make a model. And in my head, I'm going to make a model that is a new monument. And I'm going to show it to the country on July 4th, 2026. So then we continue. And now where are we? We're July, well, August. We're August now. Well, since that time, it's been 5 months. I've met with several people. And so I've been told the governor will support your project in Utah. And I have a meeting coming up on August 21st with a very powerful organization, corporation, that develops areas of Salt Lake with projects of billions of dollars. And I'm going to present to them this model that we have to complete it by next year. And then we have to complete the monument by the fall of 2033, because I believe, I think the date is January 12th, 2034. The Olympics start in Salt Lake. And so this monument needs to be in place for the world to see. And so that's the long and the short of it.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know how to respond. I mean, how big is this, and what is it? What is it?
The monument, The monument is a conglomeration of reliefs like the World War I Memorial, 6 panels, and then an arch with figures on the top that are monumental scale, 10 feet high. And one side of the monument is the inception of our country, and I've come up with 6 scenes. There are 2 panels on each side with an arch in the middle and figures on top. And the 2 scenes on each side of the arch around the inception of the country are a scene of an American colonial figure being held back by chains of an English person, a redcoat, and he's breaking away from those chains on the left side of the panel. And on the right side is an Iwo Jima type scene with George Washington leading his men. And I took the idea from him crossing the Delaware, but I took the boat out and I made it him leading, and the men are around the flag with him holding the flag. And it's Iwo Jima because they're all working together to hold the flag up. And that's what our country was about. We all got together to fight against the persecution of being under English rule. The other side of the arch is the Declaration of Independence on one side, which is a fight. It's not like a casual thing with guys in wigs and long coats. This is a real physical fight. Guys pushing a table, and they're all together with one man here. It's very kinetic. Everything is dramatic and action motivated. And then there's a Lady Liberty right in the middle of the whole composition. There's a woman. She's part of the five at the table. There were five at the party of the writing of the Declaration of Independence, right? The first draft. There were the party of five. That's what it's called. So there's a party of five here, 4 men and 1 woman.
Okay.
And then there's the Liberty Bell right behind her. And then just to the right, the flag is being brought in by another woman, could be Betsy Ross, and 2 men. Now, this is not the history of the United States. This is the philosophy. It's my philosophy of what I believe the history can be, of what we can be. So it shows moments in the history of our country. So it is very inclusive of all types. On the sides, there's emancipation, and that's a very powerful figure of a slave breaking past chains, being helped by Lady Liberty. And then right next to him is a settler meeting a native, and they are about to go to blows because that's what happened.
Yeah.
And on the other side, to their sides, is this fight for the flag, which was the fight for the flag in the Civil War. There's a Confederate and a Union soldier fighting. And then those 2 brothers are found right next to each other. One has died. The Confederate soldier has died, held in the arms of a Union soldier. That's what happened to our country. It was a massive 600,000 people died in that war. Now you pass through the arch. You can walk through the arch.
So the scale of the arch, if you have the Arch of Constantine in Rome and then the St. Louis Arch.
What's the scale?
What's the scale of it compared to those 2?
This is about the figures. It's not about the architecture so much. Okay. The architecture is used as, let's call it a frame for these reliefs. So the panels on each side of the arch are 20 feet by 8 feet, and they sit 4 feet up. And then the depth, because it's a side, is 14 feet, and the arch in the middle is 20 feet high and 11 feet wide, and the top of it is 22 feet, and the figures that sit above it reach 38 feet. Okay. So you're looking at 40 by 60. Okay. And then that will be all elevated on steps. So you pass through, you're going from east side of the country where the flag is being risen. There's also a flag being pulled up to the top. Now you're passing through the arch, and you're on the west side, which is westward expansion. And you've moved forward in time to 1860. And on the one side, so if you look on the left side, on the other side, you have westward expansion, which is very dynamic, all these people moving forward. A railroad worker, a Mormon with a Bible, and a woman with a giant pot showing agriculture. And then these men raising a house with chains. So super dynamic. You think of the most dynamic sculpture that you can think of. And why? Because that's what gets people excited, not people standing around. So why can't our history show the dynamism of our country? And that's what I find important. You want to transmit this to the next generation, to kids, to schools that teach kids. That's what we got going, the next generation. The other side gets heavy because now you're 20th century. You begin with a farm scene, and then you move into World War I. So there's an exchange of tools for a scythe to reaching for a gun, and then there's a scene of a military man right behind that who's Marine, present day, being helped up by a woman, and then civil rights underneath a flag. Now here's the kicker on that scene. Guess who's carrying the flag? You're never going to believe this. It's a guy, this is a real man who I called up, and he said, I'm coming. He said, I'm in. He didn't know me. I called him up. He lives in San Antonio. His name is Jose Luis Sanchez, and he was a Marine, and he fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. And in 2011, he lost his leg, and he's an amputee. And so he's carrying the flag, and on one side where he's been amputated, he has, you know, those carbon blades that people run in, the track guys, that they can run as fast as you. Yeah. That's like a robot part of us. It's a carbon blade that is his leg, and he carries the flag in his left hand, and the flag is huge. It goes up to 13 feet, and that flag goes back in space. And guess who's behind the flag? It's a woman and 2 African Americans, and that's who he's protecting. And that's what our country is so incredibly gracious in doing and correct in doing, is that we take all our citizens' needs into effect, and they are part of the whole. And this is a way to bring people together in a way that doesn't fracture us. It brings us together under the flag. And that movement of presenting the flag, it's presented to a woman who is Lady Liberty. She's not looking in the future. She's looking at him. And why is she looking at him? Because it's on us to carry the liberty forward. On her skirt, pulling into the future, is a 6-year-old. His name's Wes, and he's from Utah, because all the models are from Salt Lake. And he's pulling her skirt forward, and in his other hand, he has a space helmet. And he's at maximum exuberance, huge spread with little arms. And it's our future. It's a technology that we cannot avoid, and we're going to go forward with it. And so that's my answer.
It's incredibly powerful.
Wait till you see the pictures.
Yeah, I can't wait. So to conclude, I don't know how we'll even top that, but I guess if you're looking at the next, let's say 50 years, right? Achieving this cultural renaissance. I mean, a few things would go into this. Obviously, there's the education and kind of mentorship component. There's the patronage component. There's the government component, which in many cases is get government out of the way. Obviously, government will be involved in Washington, regardless, of how we feel about that. What do you think what are the things that need to come together?
The most important thing?
Yeah.
The most critical element to make this happen?
Throughout the whole country, yeah.
You have to address what is being taught in schools. So you have to completely take out victim oppressor mentality. It's deadly. It's deadly. It's a Marxist ideology that levels the playing field. And you have to go to self-responsibility and agency, and you need to address history in those terms. Not in the terms that this group was oppressed by this group. And here's the part that I think part of the country has a hard time dealing with. I'm not telling you that it didn't happen. Yes, it did happen. And it's part of our history, and we have a dirty history, as every country and every period and every culture in the world has. You have always fighting between parts of countries and different ideologies. But what has to happen is it has to be taught in a way that doesn't create like one group is more needy than another group. We're all human beings. And first and foremost, if you got to reverse the roles in education, where you look at it hierarchically like this. Human being, American, then whatever, Italian, black, whatever you want to call it, that's last. And inserted in that, let's put family. So family comes first, human being, then family, it's up to you, American, and then you can look at your ethnic,
yeah,
and your gender. And I don't even use sexual preference. It's like, great, you knock yourself out, do whatever you want to do, but don't force it on others. if you're gay, you're gay. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. You were born that way, and you need to proceed that way. But you do not force it on others. And it needs to be respected on those terms. So that's a reversal. So now instead of doing like, okay, what's your gender? What's your race? And then Americans like nationalists, and human beings not even discussed. So the education has to go in a way that actually brings pride and self-responsibility to a young person. You're not supposed to be told, well, you can't do that because this is who you are. I can't do attitude is like what got me here.
Yeah.
I had a better education than most of the people that are going to school today. And that's why I got to where I am today, because I always believed I could do it. I wasn't told, no, you can't do that. So I don't want to hear this I can't do attitude. It's like Jose, who carries the flag, he doesn't have that attitude of I can't do it. No, that guy can deadlift 400 pounds. And he has one leg. There's no excuses anymore. Get on with it. We all have problems.
So let's say we waved a wand and the education system in America was.
Well, how are you going to do that?
Right.
Because you got to dismantle all these people that have tenure.
Which is
How do you do that?
This is a big question. Let me set that aside. Let me go with waving the magic wand for right now.
All right.
Okay. And so the young people are learning these heroic virtues that would be needed to revive kind of the civilizational vision. Do there exist right now? And let's say there's hundreds of young people that want to learn what you learned, when you went to art school.
There's one other aspect.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Go for it.
There's a physicality to our nature as human beings.
Yeah.
And I think phys ed was a large part of my growing up as a young boy.
Yeah.
And phys ed actually taught us how to get our aggression out in sports and how to actually have an opponent and how to be competitive. But it also taught us how to shake hands with your opponent. Yeah. And I think that is such a critical part of growing up as a human being. We need to return to the actual, we've become too cut off at the neck where we're all cerebral and we're not an embodiment of physicality and mind. And that goes back to the Greeks again too. Yeah. So these are things that maybe that's where we start.
Young people they are craving that today. I mean, if you talk to our students, that embodied sense and even, the physical fitness is something it's being taken seriously, I think, by young people today. So then acknowledging those two, the educational and kind of the physical fitness and embodiment.
And God.
And God, right, which is obviously...
It's on the comeback.
Yeah, it is on the comeback.
Like Tyson.
Yeah, that's right. So then do the institutions exist to teach these skills currently, and is the patronage there? Is money an obstacle to what needs to be done?
Or is that money really though? That's what because I look at a lot of the private schools on like New York City, and it's like, what do? They like put a lot of people in admin, and these schools are very heavy on the admin and very heavy on the physical plants, and you need like teachers that are really they've gone out in the world and have not only been in academics, but they've been they've done something. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, one of the things is you can't separate common sense and wisdom from just book learning. Yeah. Wisdom is something that is underrated today. And I know you have a lot of people like Charlie Kirk saying, well, I didn't even go to college. Mm-hmm. It didn't do it. Look at where I am. It's like, and maybe there is, you do grow up in college, but there are other ways to grow up. And I have seen a lot of people that go in the military and they have to grow up pretty damn fast. Mm-hmm. But then they come back into society and they're not like ready to re-enter. Yeah. So maybe there's a happy medium here where, you go out in the field and you learn how to do something actually. And so that moves you out of the college system a little bit and takes away some of the power from the college system. Yeah. I don't have the answer, honestly. Sure.
And one interesting thing about Charlie is, I do know that he in recent years devoted up to 2 hours a day to actually doing deep reading, kind of getting that, and even has leaned on Hillsdale and others to help guide him in that, which I've been impressed by. But I circling back one more, so on the patronage side, and are there any, because I've observed that the left has a lot of the patronage in the art world, either formally through government channels, whether it's the NEA, or through other kind of more left-leaning foundations to sort of support artists kind of in their pursuit. Do you sense have you run into any resistance or obstacles, coming from a more classical perspective? Or would you say, no, when you have big ideas, you're able to find the people to fund those projects?
I think it's very hard, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't happen. That people need to look at giving as it gives purpose to big foundations to give. Sure. And then now all of a sudden you've implemented change for the better. And I think that I'm going to go back to this. Let's go back to square one and go, something has to change in the school system. Yeah. And I don't think it's like putting more money into it or like making physical plants or admin getting bigger. I think it's actually the philosophy. And so I'm addressing, and it's been a running theme through the last hour, where is God in the dialogue? Yeah. Where is a history that binds us in the dialogue in the school system? And I have seen schools that are very successful in Salt Lake, like American Preparatory Academy, has 5,000 students, 8 different branches, run by this woman, Caroline Charette. And a lot of the students in some of these branches are migrants. And those migrants came to this country because they'd heard about America, that you could actually have a good life here. Mm. And so she has gone to the ends of the earth to teach them the foundations of our country. And just learning the foundations of our country are a great way to give a child an I can do attitude. Mm. So this is a charter school. It's not a government-run school. Yeah. And it's ideologically run by the same ideology that runs Salt Lake in Utah. It's one of the biggest growing entrepreneurial places in the country. Hmm. What does entrepreneurship mean? And it stems, I believe, from the Constitution, that we can be anything that we set our minds to, as long as we do the work and it's realistic. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to be a professional baseball player, obviously, but if you have a dream and you work towards it, and you work. Do you hear the word work? Yeah. It's not just given, and you use your mind and your heart, and you follow that, then perhaps there's a huge success. But it takes a demand and a toll on you that is not technologically given to you. You have to do the work, and you have to do the work the old-fashioned way of going through the fire. Hmm. And I that is a family thing. Yeah. So I'm going looking at families need to become whole again. Yeah. And success you find and I've talked to Ian Rowe, who runs Success Academy in the Bronx. Yeah. And Ian said, it's not about the race, and he's black. It's all about whether that family stays together as a structure, and that child has the encouragement of a father and a mother. Yeah. So where are we now? This anti-family thing, no good. Yeah. And this is coming straight from the horse's mouth. That guy is in the trenches, and his success rate is like off the charts compared to other places. Yeah.
So what I hear you saying is basically if we have God back in his rightful place, if we have strong families with a mother and father, if we have an education system that can actually reconnect the civilizational links from kind of America's founding all the way back to kind of Greece and Rome and the Renaissance and pass on that tradition, then we will have
The physicality, too.
the physicality, the embodiment. Then we will have the imagination and the drive as a
Creativity.
people. The creativity.
It's creativity.
To build the beautiful things.
Artists are not the only ones who are creative in this country. We don't have the corner on that. This is part of being an American citizen. That's why people flood our country from the rest of the world, because they see there's an opportunity. And it's the opportunity to be creative with your God-given gift of life. So don't shut that down. That means let's get government out of our life as much as possible. And this whole thing about income tax is deadly for small businesses. You need to start looking at it like more of like, how can citizens develop their communities? And I don't think we've touched enough upon this, and we did a little bit about the unity thing, but there's too much of a separation between citizens and neighborhoods and people, and their communities need to become more of a way of being for the United States, because we've had so much space in our country. People have a tendency to scatter and not come together, except in certain places like in the house of the Lord and in sports arenas and entertainment. But Italy, because I'm from Italy, I really... going out into a communal space and sitting down in a piazza or at a restaurant is part of life, because you don't go after work to your living room and stare at the television alone. You go into a community and you enjoy being part of a whole.
Yeah.
So we keep returning to this idea of whole and unity.
Unity.
And it doesn't end there. It's whole and unity of a human being. Mm-hmm. And that's what we were talking about in the education system. Perception breeds reality.
I think we'll end on that note.
Great.
Thank you.
It's a lot.